South Korea says it intends to lodge a complaint to the World Trade Organization after Japan imposed restrictions on high-tech exports to the country. The move will hit South Korea's chip and smartphone giants. Tokyo says it made the move after what it calls a breakdown in trust with Seoul. Both countries are engaged in a dispute over court rulings in South Korea, requiring Japanese companies to compensate victims of a wartime forced labor policy. The new restrictions take effect from July 4th. It will affect the export of key materials used by South Korea's chip and smartphone giants, such as fluorinated polyimide, which is used in display manufacturing, as well as a material used to clean chips. They will be removed from a list that allowed them to be shipped quickly. Instead, exporters will be required to seek permission from the Japanese government for each batch they want to ship to South Korea. The process takes about 90 days. South Korea has slammed the move, saying it's in violation of international laws. It wants to lodge a complaint with the WTO.
예, 잘 아시다시피 이제 우리 정부는 그간 한일 경제 분야에 있어가지고 긴밀한 경제 협력 관계를 유지를 해왔습니다. 그리고 또 그러한 노력을 지속을 해왔는데 이번 일본 측의 부당하거나 국제법에 위반된 조치에 대해서는 단호하게 대응할 그런 예정입니다. 이번 일본의 수출 제한 조치는 WTO 협정상 원칙적으로 이제 금지되는 조치로서 이런 일본 정부의 조치에 대해서는 유감스럽게 생각을 하고 있습니다.
Companies likely to be most affected by the announcement have taken a hit in trade today. Shares of Samsung Electronics closed down 0.85%, while LG Electronics plunged more than 3%. But SK Hynix bucking the declines, with stocks up by 0.72%. Now, for more analysis on the impacts, we have Jesper Koll, Senior Advisor at Wisdom Tree Investments, joining us from Tokyo. Jesper, what sort of impact are we looking at in South Korea? Do the tech giants there have alternative sources for these materials?
Unfortunately not. The Japanese really dominate these particular materials for the semiconductor making. For example, Japan basically has 90% of the global market share of the fluorine polyimide and of the resist, and 70% of the etching gas. So these are very, very specific little components that are needed, and the supply chain disruption potentially is very large for some of the Korean companies.
And does it extend beyond that as well? Do you expect this to disrupt Asian supply chains as well?
Yeah, no, it's specifically targeted at Korea here. It obviously does have a boomerang effect for those Japanese companies that are supplying it, like Kanto Denka Kogyo or JSR. They will have a little loss, in terms of sales, but really, for all intents and purposes, it hits the Korean semi-makers.
And this will impact South Korea's chip and smartphone giants like Samsung, SK Hynix and LG. Won't it also hurt Japan then? You sort of alluded a bit to it there.
No, not really, in the sense of that, it's only targeted at Korea. It's not targeted at the rest of the world there. But let's be just very clear. What it does mean is that we are going to see higher prices for consumers and customers as these bottlenecks need to be worked out.
All right, thanks very much for your thoughts this evening. Jesper Koll, Senior Advisor at Wisdom Tree Investments in Tokyo.